Welcome to For Collectors.
Good evening, collectors. Welcome to another live stream Sunday with the For Collectors channel. My name is Semi Thunder, and as you can see, we have a full panel on display tonight where we are going to be discussing both the White Plains Card Show and the Dallas Card Show. It's fun when these things overlap, and I don't think we've ever really done a live stream like this before where two card shows happen on the same weekend. So want to appreciate everybody here joining tonight. So we have, as you can see, Dan's Vintage Baseball PC, Rusty Vintage Cards, Brian from B-Roth 6, Matt from The Card Story, and Jake from Wax Packs Wisdom. Jake, I think you need to unmute your mic. I can probably do it for you.
I got you. Yep.
Cool. So welcome, gents. Thank you guys so much for taking the time tonight to do this.
Yep. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
So I can only speak for the White Plains Card Show in particular. I think there's a lot of, as far as traffic goes, packed card show. Definitely there's a lot of collectors, a lot of people there, and that's encouraging to see. I did notice that with the Lucky sports card promotion that they had a woman going around. I guess she works with promotion, and she was checking in on the dealers, and that's something I haven't seen before at a large show like that. The only, I think, the agreed takeaway from a lot of us was the fact that the aisles and the rows were very, very narrow, far more narrow than they have been in the past. So let's start talking. Let's start with just an overview about that. If any of you guys, Dan, Brian, or Jake, want to jump in on that as far as talking about their observations from the first time Lucky running a show.
I'll say that, so my first time ever at a show at this venue, I had never been to a Westchester County Center show, and I do want to more sort of defer to both Dan and Brian, and I know Dan has quite a bit of thoughts about this, but I thought that I got there right when it opened, and I thought it was fine at first, but then it's opened at 10. By like 11 o'clock, 11:30 or so, it was very difficult to get around, and it was just not it was not really fun, that part of it. Like everything else about the show was fun, but just it made it hard to kind of make multiple like loops around, because I think a show like that, like I personally, my view is I want to try to see as much of the show as I can before I then decide on what I'm going to buy. And it made it really hard to want to like go back to a place where, especially, if there was a table that was kind of in the middle that I knew there was, something I was interested in or wanted, it was hard to kind of go back to that. I will say that, so this promoter, Lucky's Promotions, they run what is now the two first shows of the year at the Shriners Auditorium in the Boston area, where I met both Dan and Sammy back in November. So it's a different promoter that does the November show, but the April show, and now they've added a June show, are run by Lucky's. And I think that Shriners is a bit different, because the layout is the actual area, I felt like, where the show happens at Shriners was much bigger and much more open than the Westchester County Center was. So I think there was like not a lot of options in terms of at Shriners. Like I don't think they could really mess it up personally, but it seems like maybe they kind of messed it up here. And so I'll let Dan and Brian talk about it. But I had, as far as like buying and getting and seeing the dealers, and like obviously getting to see you guys, it was great. It was a great experience, but definitely not my favorite experience in terms of just trying to actually navigate to get to the tables at the show. It was tough. It was really tough.
So it brings up an interesting point that, I published a video a few hours ago. I wanted to get it up before this, and I was pretty brutal in my assessment of what my feelings were about the show. And I know Sam and Brian have both been to this show many times, as have I. And that was an advantage for me that Jake didn't have, because yes, it was really crowded, but I knew where to go. Like, I knew where the dealers were going to be that I wanted to do business with. So in that sense, I could avoid some of the crowds. But I was pretty clear in my video. The situation outside was just not acceptable, and the situation inside, where they took all of the dealers that are normally downstairs, brought them upstairs, crushed them into one big room, and moved the aisles so close that you couldn't get by if there were two people, at two different dealers looking. To me, that really spoiled the experience for me personally. And I can only imagine, like, somebody who traveled 3 hours in a car, Jake, who didn't necessarily know where the dealers that you wanted to go to were located. That would be even more frustrating for me. I'm interested to know how Brian, you didn't, I don't know, maybe you did walk the floor a little bit, but you generally, as a dealer in that one spot, what your feelings were about how it affected your business during the day.
Yeah, I actually first noticed that the aisles seemed more narrow as we were setting up. I got to the show at like 10:15, 10:30, and when we were arranging all of the showcases and getting everything together, I kind of like looked behind me and I said to myself, or even to like the people I was with, that like, if I'm standing at our table and there's someone standing at the table behind us, it would be very difficult for someone to walk through, just as you said, Dan, just two people on opposite sides of them. I think something that affected that traffic was the impending weather that we're having in the area now. I think people rushed in on Saturday to make sure they can get to the show. Even Friday, like at times, like pretty much from like 3 o'clock on, seemed busier than a typical Friday at this show. One other thing that they've done in the past when they've had more dealers is they actually opened up like the side room where they have autograph guests, and they then put autograph guests on the stage. But on the stage now they had Beckett and CSG. And so two larger areas for people to navigate, both downstairs in the side room that were not utilized. And yesterday we were slammed like most of the day. I didn't take any breaks until probably like 3 o'clock in a show that ends at like 5 or 6 or whatever. So super, super busy show. But, those were like the things mainly that I identified early on that I could have seen as potential issues. So I'm there with you guys for sure.
Yeah, I just want to mention too that the frustrating thing for me, and you kind of brought this up, Dan, was like there was no place on the website for Lucky's where you could look at and see what the vendor list was and what the layout of like what the table numbers was, so you could at least correlate those. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, I don't understand the rationale behind that. Like, you're not protecting state secrets. Like Shriners, like the fall show, you can match them up. Like they have the list of the layout of the numbers and then who's going to be there. And Philly you can just list it up and try to fit. Yeah. And you can, I think I've seen that with Philly show website. I've seen that on the Strongsville website. I think the National does that too. So I don't understand. That was really frustrating to me. Like, because I know based off of like, what you guys have said, I knew who was going to be there. I knew that Sandlock was going to be there. I knew that Ash was going to be there. I knew that I knew that a lot of the big names were going to be there, but like, it was just, that was frustrating because I walk in and I think I had to ask, I was like, I think maybe Sammy, I asked you, I'm like, where's Stan set up? Like, where's Ash set up? Like it was just frustrating. Like I should be able to know that walking in, like where people are going to be set up. So it was too bad.
So clearly we see there's some issues that need to be fixed for the next show that Lucky does, but let's swing over to the Dallas show. Matt and Rusty, your experiences, was it more of the same? Was there any improvements, or was there new dealers? I mean, why don't you share some of your takeaways?
Sure. So Ty and I've gone to every Dallas card show now. It's like 3 years running almost. So we've had some experience. But I've never gone on Friday before. So I went on Friday because we had some fellow content creators going to be there, right? So Chris from Missouri came into town, so definitely wanted to spend time with him and his friends. Brent and Tom came in, so that part was great. Obviously, I got to meet Rusty for the first time Friday evening as well, so that was fun. Rusty and his son, so that part was great. But in terms of the show, like it was packed. I got there around just after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so there's still 4 hours to go. It opened till 8, and I parked on the top deck of the parking garage. So like, which is still good. At least I got a spot still, but it's like sixth floor of a parking garage for this hotel, right? So very busy. I think I saw some comments in there about people saying $15 to walk into the show there. It's Dallas is $15 as well, and it was $12 to park now. They keep raising those prices. It used to be $5, then went to 10, went to 12. So definitely continuing the trend of higher cost just to walk through the door. But in terms of traffic, like it was packed. They didn't change the aisle spacing, so that was good. No layout changes. It's just it was cram packed full of people, and I saw a lot of activity. I'm not sure, Rusty, if you want to chime in on that part, but there was definitely a lot of deals that were happening. In fact, the one card I did pick up was actually pulled out of the case when I went back to try to go buy it because Chris had pulled out for one of his buddies potentially, right? So anyway, all that to say, like, if you wanted a card, you definitely need to buy it as soon as you saw it. There wasn't a whole lot of time for laps because I made one quick 30-minute lap, and that was it was already almost too late. So anyway, I don't know, Rusty, if you have any. Might be Rusty's first time to Dallas. I can't remember.
It was. I have very little point of reference, honestly, with this show because it's the biggest show I've ever been to. I've gone to local shows here in the Tulsa area, but I've never been to a Dallas show, and it was a lot of fun. I didn't have any issues getting around. There were a lot of people. You had to maneuver the traffic a little bit, but I felt like there was enough aisle space. There were four or five rooms that had cards. Tables set up. You had the main room, and it took us. We were there all day Friday, and it took us several hours to get through all of it. I kept going until my 11-year-old son said, "All right, my legs are tired and I'm hungry." So then we ended up going into that last room where I met Matt and Chris. Met Chris from Missouri, and Chris gave my son one of his hats. That was cool.
Wow.
Yeah, he loved it.
Big time.
But it was a great experience for us. Just a new experience for me. I'm definitely the new guy on this panel, so appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. Let me ask you guys. So I know Ash was Ash had I think had his son and some support in the White Plains show. I know Ash was down in Dallas. Was there any other some of the bigger recognized dealers down in Dallas as well? I'm wondering if Craig, how was it? I can't remember how to pronounce his last name.
Halbig. No, I didn't see Craig there, but and I know Dan for sure knows. Scott Brockelman sets up at every show. That's actually where the booth in front of where we met up with Rusty. Chris is working on a deal. Then I won't steal his thunder, but Scott Brockelman's always set up in that, we call it the Starlight Room. It's like the smaller room right when you get right when you get in from the parking garage. But he's obviously big. And I don't want to I'm not here to represent him by anything, but he does have an auction opening tomorrow for those that want to check it out on BrockelmanAuctions.com. But I don't get paid. I'm not a paid sponsor, I promise. But he lives like half a mile from me, so I woke up and say, "Hey, neighbor." So we know each other pretty well. But so he was there. Those are probably the two biggest dealers. It's kind of funny. He's in the smaller room, but he gets a ton of traffic because everyone just knows he's in the same spot every show. In terms of other people we know, obviously James is there supporting. There's a Louisville Cards and Comics as a guy he helps out, but then obviously Collector Connection, or the one that Chris Sewell has. I don't care what the exact name, but
Jeremy Dodson.
Jeremy's friend Chris, right? Yep.
Oh, okay.
Texas Snowman, or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
They had just picked up that big collection. I think Moynihan featured at the. They called it a Dallas card show, but it was actually over closer to where I live. It's in the Fort Worth, but it was a December show. I think they had that Mike went, and showed all that crazy collection. He picked up all those Cobbs, and I think Mike had got a 80-81 Bird Magic rookie card, if I recall. But so Mike was there, but I missed Mike. He left, I think, maybe before 4. I'm not sure if you got to see Mike or not, Rusty. He had brought, I think, maybe his nephew or something that came with him. So he, they got in early, right? They had press passes, so they got there, I think, just after 9 in the morning. They were able to walk in when the dealers were still setting up, right? So they had to fill. Chris and them were going strong until after 6. So more stamina than I usually have at the national. I usually take some breaks. So, but that was a great show, well attended. I don't. But I guess let me know if we're ready to get into like mix of the show in terms of vintage versus modern versus other things. But I have feedback on that too. Whenever you're ready to go through
Let's
that.
do it. Go ahead, jump right into that, and we'll come. And then we'll pivot back over to the White Plains and talk a little bit about that as well.
Sure. So Russ, I'm not sure. I was kind of trying to keep an eye on. I know you said your son collects, I think it was soccer cards, right? But in terms, I didn't look at a ton in terms of the sports mix, but I would say Pokemon has definitely increased because again, I go to every one of these, right? So I'd say Pokemon's now a quarter of the show almost. At least that's what I felt like for me. It's definitely a lot more dealers that are multiple tables of just Pokemon cards, raw or singles and boxes for sale. And then I'd say it's probably 40%, 45% modern, and the other 25, 30% vintage. You mentioned Ash, so I know we talked about it before. I'm not sure if we had the same thing up in White Plains, but I know we talked about why hasn't this happened yet, and we all thought it was going to happen. But he actually had printed photos of cards for sale that he didn't want to have in his case. So that's happening now. I guess that's a thing. He picked up a collection, I guess, a week or so ago. Probably some of you guys saw it on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. But picked up a crazy collection, and he had 2 cards that were just printed, and they were for sale, but they were not the case. So obviously, we had the theft. What was it, like right before the national last year? I guess early July last year, right before a couple weeks before the Cleveland show, right? So definitely seeing that, and I saw a ton of security. There were at least 2 armed police officers in the main room pretty much all the time, walking around with double holstered. So they were there and they meant business, I guess, right? Which is good. Cameras everywhere. So, Rusty, I'm not sure if that's kind of the same feel you got in terms of the percentage. If you were even kind of looking at that, I know it's your first time there. So
I would agree with that. Lots of Pokemon, lots of modern. And I mean, when you hit a pocket of vintage, there was, there could be a lot of it, a string of tables together. There was surprisingly a lot in that side room where I met you guys. But yeah, lots of, you'd walk down an aisle and I would just kind of pan to my left and right and just see modern Pokemon. Okay, let's turn around. There was a lot of that, a lot of kids carrying their cases with them. But yeah, I would say that's accurate.
It seems as though, like going back to the White Plains show, I was getting feedback from showgoers that they were saying that the vintage was well represented. I haven't gotten to know these dealers that well. I see that, like the one I'm thinking of in particular, I think he's from Arizona actually. Desert Ice Sports Cards.
Brad.
His name is Brad.
Brad Lang, yeah.
Yeah, I mean his inventory is vast, and I mean I've gotten to know his table because of a lot of the like 50% off raw cards that he sells.
Yeah,
and it seems like I guess he has like a lot of overflow, but like some of these dealers I've seen them at Philly, they kind of not to say they fly under the radar because they certainly don't. I mean they're well represented, but it definitely seemed overall that the County Center show definitely had a good amount of vintage represented there. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I would fully agree with that. I would say that it was a lot of vintage. I would say it was probably more than half of the tables had at least some vintage. There were quite a few dealers that had both vintage and modern. I would say there was like a mix of that. There was definitely non-sports like Pokemon stuff, but not a lot. I mean, it was there. So I thought overall vintage very well represented. Definitely more than half of the vendors had stuff that I would consider vintage, stuff older than like 1980.
I would say that the vintage guys that are normally there were all there. The only dealer that I didn't see there that has been there before is Paul Borges from Newport. Yeah. But Paul doesn't always go to White Plains. He just started going to Philly like the last 3 or 4. But I know he was at White Plains the last time, and I know exactly where he was. Interestingly enough, his location was taken up by that gentleman named Alex, who sold the vast quantity of his collection to the Texas Snowman. But he was there, and I was looking at some of his stuff and talking to him a little bit. He was sort of off in the corner, which was the best place to be because it wasn't crushed side to side. So, but yeah, vintage was very well represented as it normally is at that show. And like I said before, I knew where to go because I knew where the guys generally were. And there was, I didn't see Pokemon, but then again, I'm really not even paying attention to it. I'm just sort of seeing shiny stuff and walking by. But I did buy one of my big cards from a modern dealer who had a little bit of vintage, and I can get into that story a little later if you want.
Before we do that, Mookie brings up a comment. You actually, Brian, you sold your 67 Mantle and a 7 to Silver Jackify.
Yep.
I watched that video.
Yeah, he
and
made a nice.
I don't know this. You mentioned you mentioned the name, I guess, of the collector that had the mantle before. I don't know the full story, so if you want to talk a little bit about that.
I actually don't know who it was. I bought it like in an auction. It was like just with a group of other cards. There's no like special story around that card, unfortunately.
I just keep hearing a name that there's like, oh, this is from some so and so or something.
Oh,
like that.
well, his name's Joe. Silver Dragonfly's name is Joe. So I was like, this is a card.
Okay.
This is a Joe card.
I gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
so I didn't connect the dots there.
Yeah.
But I guess let's talk a little bit about. I mean, your experiences as being a dealer for this one. I mean, you've done it a number of times, but I mean, I guess given the traffic and given the just the amount of people there, how was it for you overall?
Extremely busy. I had, I guess just personally, like I had a really good show. I didn't buy a whole lot. There was actually today, there was an older gentleman that was selling some cards like across the aisle from us that we really wanted. I had like seen, because the show today, like there were actually a lot of dealers yesterday that left and didn't come back today due to the weather. And I think that was probably to their detriment. Like the show is actually like decently attended for a Sunday with impending snowstorm. There were like a few hours. I would say like it petered out like at 1 o'clock, but from 10 to 1, like it was a decently attended show today. But the gentleman had I don't know, like a 400 count box, like size box, filled with strip cards, filled.
Wow.
And I got a decent look at them. Among was a W514 Joe Jackson, 2 Babe Ruth strip cards, 2 Ty Cobbs, Ty Cobb red portrait with a Tolstoy back, Speaker American Beauty back, T206, Cobb bat on, some like E121s. It was like crazy stuff. Walking in on a Sunday, it probably was like 250 strip cards and a handful of T206s and other things. So stuff like just walks into that show. People have crazy stuff in this area. And like even to the table that I was at, this guy literally brought like a gym bag just with like vintage cards, like from the 50s, mostly just literally thrown in loosely. They were in like top loaders, but it was literally like you took them and threw them into a bag, and he sold everything in the bag to the people I was with.
Right. When I said goodbye to you on Saturday, there was a gentleman who you were talking to, and he was showing you some strip cards also. That's a different one from the one you were talking about just now?
Yeah. That individual I know, he resides in the city. He's a collector of like pretty rare, like pre-war stuff. But yeah, different individual and different collection. But yeah, that shoeless Joe Jackson was fun to see. I don't think I've seen one at a show before. Or like if I have, it's like at Tony E-Trade or Ashish, or that's not a card that just like walks into a show on a Sunday. So that was really cool to see. Yeah, I mean, personally, like I had a really great show. I didn't buy a whole lot as much as I wanted to. I think that's kind of par for the course for this show. Like I generally think that a lot of dealers are just like pretty strong with their prices. But I was able to find some things today that I was happy with. But yeah, I think overall I had, I would say like the show is like certainly an A+ for like what I needed it to be. So I'm very happy. And thank you, Dan, for purchasing a card for me.
You got it. Great one. Do you want to see it?
If you want to show it, everyone else can take a look.
Nice.
The beautiful eye appeal. Number means nothing because this is a forever card for me. So thank you, my friend, because this was a great deal. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. I'm glad it's in your collection.
Yeah, it's an awesome card. I was really happy to add one of that card to my collection recently as well. Same thing, just a card with great. I tried to get one with great eye appeal. I bought it off eBay. It was pasted in a book, and so I literally just got it back from SGC. It's going to go up in a video that I'll be posting tomorrow. Yeah, that's a great buy, Dan. Congrats.
Yep.
It's such a tough card to get in any kind of decent eye appeal condition.
Well, the other thing for me about this was the timing of it. Like I knew I was going to go in and see Brian. And I knew where Brian was going to be set up, like right in the front. So when I walked in to talk to you, Brian, I was fuming from standing outside in the freezing cold for 40 minutes. I was, if anyone had bumped into me, I probably would have gotten into a fist fight before I got to you. So I get to, I see you, we make eye contact, and you immediately go in and get the card. And I'm like, all of a sudden, like my mood just changed from like gray clouds to like, rainbows. And so that really kind of made my show get better. Let's put it that way. So that was a fun part. And then it's funny because I was standing next to your booth when Jake came up, and then Jake and I were talking, and introduced me to his lovely wife, and we're chatting. And then the older gentleman who's there with you, I don't know his name, but he's like pushing me out of the way. So I'm like, dude, if that guy had done that like 20 minutes earlier,
they'd be carrying Dan out, one guy on one side, one guy on the other, just pulling him out of the show. Just get out of here. Oh man.
That really bothered me when he did that. And it wasn't the first time that he does that. He, like me, he had one display case of cards. And I understand, if someone is browsing his display case or trying to browse his display case and people are in front of or around that is prohibiting that. But Dan, no one else was looking at his cards. So he's just being a nonce for being a nonce. I don't ever appreciate that. And I told him so.
I didn't know that. Okay.
On subsequent times that he did that. It's just rude.
It's funny because if you see the picture that is taken, Abby took a picture of Jake and I, and I'm like, I look like I'm in a great mood all of a sudden because I have this card. So.
Yeah,
I thought it was because of me, Dan. I mean,
it was,
and my wife, but.
So I think we lost Sammy.
Yeah,
thanks over again.
For a little, I think maybe his camera or his internet was. I'll see if he texted me.
Dan, you're the resident fifth collector, right?
Yeah, Dan's
so
Dan. Here we go.
You can just you're the Pete Best of four collectors, so you can just
let's
slide
see. Right, thanks. Let's see what Rusty. You got any pickups from your show? Oh, there he is. Okay,
here we are.
I do.
I almost took over, Sammy. They told me to take over. Ask Rusty to show us some pickups.
Go for it.
Yeah, so I'll start with this is I've had Diamond Stars on the list for a while. I didn't have any Diamond Stars cards, so I was able to get this Earl Averill.
Sweet.
Nice.
And this was one on my list, and I saw this one, and I actually bought a little package.
Oh, there it is. There you go.
Okay. So got this in a little package deal with, can you see it? There we go.
Yep, there we go.
Got this in a package deal with another card that I'll show here in a minute. But just a clean card. It fit my list, so I really enjoy that one. Just the colors on it and registration, everything, just it fit my collection. So I got that from a guy who had a lot of vintage stuff, a lot of just stacks. So, he'd open up the case and you just look through a stack and see what was in there. And this was behind a stack of other Diamond Stars. So found that one and really happy with it.
When you get a Diamond Star with like creamy white borders and great color, like there's nothing better, in my opinion, in the 30s. Like that set just rocks.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a 90-year-old card, and a lot of those don't have that. They don't have those qualities. So, and this one, he's not an inner circle Hall of Famer, so it's not terribly expensive. But I was targeting him. I did a deep dive into Dizzy Dean, and he's the guy who hit the line drive in the All-Star game that broke Dizzy Dean's toe. And ended up spiraling into Dizzy Dean tearing up his arm because he wouldn't put any weight on that foot. So, so he was on my radar. If I saw one of his cards, specifically that one, if I saw that card, then I was going to pick that up. So it worked out.
Let's see what else you got.
This was the package deal that I got with that card. And that is Vernon Gomez. Yeah, 1939 play ball.
Yep.
That's a sharp looking card.
I was gonna say that's also really white, like for a 39 play ball.
Yeah,
those are hard.
It is. Yeah, it has a little corner ding, and really that's another little tiny crease in one of the bottom.
You gonna grade that?
I think I will.
Yeah, because SGC is actually pretty forgiving on those. I just completed the 39 Yankees team set. I'm doing a show on it in a few weeks. And I sent in several of them to SGC myself, and the grades that I got back were actually better than I expected. I think they're kind of forgiving on those.
Okay.
So hopefully you'll get a nice mid-grade on that.
Yeah, I thought I would send that in for grading. It's, I don't know if it'll get at least a 3, I would think. I mean, that one little top, let's see, it's going to be left on this corner here has a little bit of a ding on it, and that's really about it.
Yeah, but look at how the centering's beautiful.
Oh yeah, great centering.
Nice.
So that was a package deal. That was what can you do for these two kind of thing. So and he was another guy on my list, being a mentor to Joe DiMaggio, and I'm reading a book on Joe, and he's mentioned quite a bit in that book. So that was first two. No, second two I got. I'll show another one here in a minute. But what do you guys have?
Dan, do you want to talk about the story of your pickup? And
yes, so I call it a cheat code. It's the concept that sometimes if you go up to a modern dealer, tend to be younger guys, and they've got like a little bit of vintage off to the side that they're not really paying much attention to, and they price it like they put a number on it that's probably right out of ECP, and you can negotiate with them down from that, but they don't put the number on it based on what the card looks like. So I see this card.
Ooh.
That's awesome.
It's a as you can see, it's the 34 to 36. I don't know what year they give this one. In reality, they mess up the dates on these all the time, but it's the Fox from the Diamond Stars. And I look at it and I'm like, all right, that's a 1.5, but look at the front of it. It's like a 6. There's got to be something on the back. So I look at the back and there's nothing on the back. And I noticed, I don't know if you could see it. Yeah, you can see it right there. There's a little pinhole. So that's how it gets a 1.5. And I'm thinking to myself, well, this guy has no idea. I could barely get his attention to open up the case. And I just hold up the card. It's got a price on it. I take $50 off. I give him a number. He says, sure. So I whip out the money as fast as I can and get it, because I spent the amount of money on this card that you would spend for a 1 or an A or a 1, with creases and stuff, simply because the guy didn't price it for what it looks like. He priced it for what the number is. And, so I get this gorgeous Fox with tremendous eye appeal for probably about half of what I should have paid for it. So cheat code. Maybe I shouldn't pass by all those modern dealers. I should spend time looking for seeing if they have any if they've got any vintage that they don't give a crap about. So
Congrats,
that was
Dave. Nice one.
my nice pickups.
You can for future reference, you're able to tell on the back of the card if you look toward the bottom above the copyright, like where it says like they're like it'll say like usually their batting average. It'll say like batted 3 something in 1934. So you'll know
34. Yeah, so this is a 35. Yep.
That's how you know.
Yep.
Mookie. You mentioned at the show. That's what I call a wounded buffalo from the herd.
Wow.
Well, Jimmy Fox was the size of a buffalo, so that's actually.
But yeah, there's definitely truth in that as far as when it comes to modern collectors that have some vintage on display. Their whole focus is shifted towards really focusing on the modern, and they don't spend as much time pricing out the vintage. So it's I mean, when you see something that's eye catching in there, absolutely take advantage. Matt, did you pick up anything at the Dallas?
I did. Yeah, I got just one card I picked up on Friday night. I went back today with Ty and my wife, but I didn't pick up any cards today. They were actually similar to what I think Brian, you mentioned with New York. We have cold weather coming, no storms like today or anything, but we got there today just before 11, and there was probably 30 of the dealers almost were gone, which is crazy. It was still packed today though. So I picked up another one of my called the trio, I guess, right? It says Eddie Matthews 54 Johnson cookies. So that completes the trio. I got all 3 of the Braves guys I collect, Spawn, Aaron, and Matthews from that set. So happy to grab that one. That was the one I mentioned at the beginning. Tom had looked at it earlier in the day and was going to pick it up, but then he bought a bunch of other cards, so he ended up not wanting to get it, or wasn't going to be able to get it, so it worked out. But when I went back to that case, it was gone. There was because there was like a D&D, I can't remember who it was. There was a D&D card next to it, so I knew right where it was at, and I was like freaking out. It's that moment of panic, where like the one card I was looking for at the show, and was almost missed it, so got lucky.
Did you pick that up from a dealer that we would recognize, or is it somebody?
Do you guys know Brian Deck? He does a lot online. DEC is his last name. How you spell his last name? So yeah,
Florida guy. He sits up, like usually like close to the first row when you're at the Philly show, and he's at the National too. Yeah,
super nice guy. Made it
nice.
He had a sticker price on it. He negotiated against himself and told me a number, and I'm like, yep, that's mine now. So
Nice.
Very cool. And Brian, you said you didn't pick anything up, or did you happen to get anything?
I do, but my stuff's in the other room, so maybe I can put myself on mute, grab it, and I can come back.
Sure.
Okay, 1 second.
Good. Jake, do you want to, in the meantime? I mean, I know.
Well, I was going to say my biggest transaction of the day yesterday was I bought 2 cards from somebody who wasn't set up as a dealer at the show. His name is Sammy Thunder, and it's these 2 61 Fleer Celtics cards. I'm gonna pop me up on the screen there. So Sammy and I had a deal already worked out where I was going to buy this card from him, the Sam Jones rookie, in an SGC 4.5. I'm doing the Celtics run of all of the. There's 11 Celtics cards in the 61 Fleer set. They're all Hall of Famers, and so we had agreed a while ago that I was going to buy this card from him. But then he also brought this card that I needed, the Kuzi regular card in the 3. So we made a deal, and I got both of these cards off him. So thank you, Sammy. It was a great deal, and gets me 2 cards closer to finishing that run. And then I'll just mention, like I basically I chipped away at things that I am working on, and then I think I picked up a couple of Tito 6 Hall of Famers in action poses. I got this Iron Man McGinnity in a 2 from John Goodman, who sets up he sets up at Shriners, and I think he's a Long Island based guy, and always has a lot of good pre-war stuff. And then the John McGraw, the Finger in the Air. I got that from Z Sports Cards, Mike. I was really happy with that one. And then the only other, I got some wax too. I bought one sort of random Yaz card, but the one thing I will mention is that for the cost of $13 total between two transactions, I got the last like 30 cards that I needed to finish my 76 top set build. So was really happy with that to finish, to round that out. The story behind that was that over the summer, I came into a collection that belonged to my my wife's one of her best friends. Like her dad, like he's still alive, but he just like didn't care about his cards anymore. So he was like, "Oh yeah, you want them? Yeah, just go and take whatever you want from my collection." It was all the stuff from the mid '70s from when he was a kid. The biggest thing that was in it, and he didn't want any money for it. He's just like, just take whatever you want. Like, just get out of here. The biggest thing in it was that there was a Walter Payton rookie in it that ended up grading a SGC 4.5 that I traded to a mutual friend of many of ours, Matt from Providence, to get it was a cash plus trade, but I used that to get my E90-1 Eddie Collins. So was able to translate that into something I wanted. But he basically had basically 3/4 at least, or maybe 80% of the 76 set. And it was all organized by team. So it took me a while to kind of collate it and figure out what I needed. And thanks to Mark Hoyle sent me 4 cards from his childhood collection as a rack. And I really appreciate that, Mark. 4 cards that he pulled out of packs as a kid from the 76 set. So thank you, Mark. But then I was able, like I said, I think it was like, there was two separate deals. One, it was basically one dealer was missing one card. The last card that I needed was this that I picked up from a different dealer, the Gary Nolan of the Big Red Machine fame. So that was a nice accomplishment. Was I basically I needed like maybe 100 or 150 cards, and over the last couple months, kind of slowly I've chipped away at it, and now I finished it. So that was probably my favorite thing I accomplished at White Plains, was finishing the 76 set.
Perfect, man. It's a good way to, even though you had to fight tooth and nail to navigate the room.
Yeah. It's kind of nice to take a seat at one of I don't remember the guy's name, but he sets up at Shriners too. He was kind of, when you walk in, he was on the left, and he has the binders of tons of sets from multiple sports through the years. And I've bought from him previously. I think I bought some cards from him when I was building my 63 set last year, not last year, but 2023. And he had all but that Gary Nolan card. And then we like literally walked down to the next table. And I was like, because my wife had the list, like basically we have this system sometimes when we go to shows together where if I'm working on something, she'll take the list, read off the numbers while I'm looking through the binder. And I'll be like, okay, so what's next? 15? Okay, I'll pull up 15. Okay, what's next? 44? Okay, 44. I'll pull that out. So there was the one card, that 444, that we didn't have. So I went to the next guy, and he had the row boxes, and he had the 76 tops ones. And I'm like, what's the last number that we needed? She goes, 444. I'm like, you didn't even look at the list? And she's like, no, I just remembered. It's in my head, 444. It's like, all right, well, I got it right here. So that was kind of a fun moment to round out that set build.
I'm going to have to train my wife to do that.
You got to keep her. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
that's some patience.
Well, Matt's wife at the National was the one who kept the table for us so that we could take breaks. And I was like,
nice.
This is a keeper.
Yeah, definitely fortunate.
Yeah. All right, Brian. Do you have your cards ready?
My turn. Yes.
Yes, sir.
This was like everything I bought today. I didn't buy a single card, like prior to, like a decent 68 Clemente I got. I don't think it's not like a grader. It's probably like VGX. It has like a couple of corner dings. I have some like high grade commons I'm probably going to give to Greg Morris. These are all like 66s and 68s, no high numbers, but just like sharp and centered. These are like very uninteresting cards, but there's like a group of like 10 of them. And then he threw in like these 70s Hall of Famers that I'll probably like put out for like $5 each or less. He did have this like really sharp 68 kilobrew that's extremely well centered and nice. So I was happy to get that. I was trying to open my mail, but it will require a little more time, so I can't do that. But the guy who bought that collection of strip cards had a bunch of T206s, and from speaking with him, I didn't really get the sense that he like really knew what he was doing. Like he didn't know like specifics of T206s. Like he graded probably over 200 of them, but they're all like 1s and 1.5s and mostly commons. But he graded like every card that wasn't an absolute beater. So I got this Bill Bradley that has a factory overprint, which I think is cool. I'll save that for last because that's a really cool card. This Fred Tenney is a tough portrait because there's someone who actually hoards this card. So I always try and pick that up when I can. And this is a Buck Herzog T205. And he had this. He had a few coupons. I don't know if you guys are super familiar with this set. If you are, stop me, or I'll just keep talking.
I'm going.
Yeah.
So this was this set was issued. It's kind of some people think it's like a like these coupon backs. Some people believe that they are T206s, but they're not considered T206s like by the American Card Catalog designation.
Yeah.
They're
The paper is totally different, right? The paper is a lot thinner on those.
I think so. But even when you go to see, like, I've never actually handled one like outside of a holder, so I couldn't actually tell you. But like the name is brown on the bottom. Like there are a lot of similarities. Like even the back, the frame is the same as like a broadleaf frame. But anyway, this is a T213 Type 1 of Doc Marshall. This card is like a pop 5 of all like between PSA and SGC. So he had a fair amount of coupons. This is the only one he had with him. So these 4 cards came from him, which was cool. And hopefully I'll grab some more coupons.
Brian, I'm just curious, like for you as a, like, did you know like that was such a low pop card, or did you look that up while you were like negotiating with him?
I looked that up after, but I have like working knowledge of like most tobacco and caramel sets, but I have a couple of friends who are experts, and so I just asked them like specifically like to remind me of like the rarer coupons if they're like type 1, 2, or 3, and so they identified that's type 1 with like that back, and so I knew I had to buy that card. So yeah, I like got some help with them, you know, throughout that process, but I didn't check the pop report until after I got it back to my table and looked it up. Lonely Basement baseball cards bring something up interesting that I completely forgot about. Greg Morris himself was at the show on Friday, and it was like cool to meet him. I don't have like anything like remarkable to say about like our interaction. Wait, who said something? I didn't.
No.
His comment.
His comment is very funny.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
He said even like his eyes are getting a lot worse, but I don't think he grades cards.
He doesn't grade anymore. There's a whole bunch of guys who grade. They were at the National hanging out at Chris Sewell's booth, chatting with him, and I wasn't impressed, to be honest with you. I wish Greg did the grading again himself, but what are you going to do? People get old. Yeah.
And that's what I got.
It's a nice grab. Really nice grab.
Thanks.
Sammy, you're burying the lead on pickups for this weekend.
Yeah, I think you also have something.
Come on.
If you want to share it.
I don't mind. No, I don't mind sharing it. Because I shared it on the day 2 video. All right.
It's in my video too, because we took a picture together with it.
Right. Yeah. Totally forgot. Because I was gonna bring up pictures in the live stream here, but I didn't prepare it, so I apologize about that. So the big pickup was towards the end of my day 2. That was the 52. Thank you.
Nice.
52 Burke Ross, Willie Mays. So it was ultimately between, I was very tempted by two cards. I was tempted by this one, and I was tempted by the star decal that Howard had, but Howard had a price fix that he wanted, and I just couldn't get there, so I moved on. And I didn't even know this was in Stan's case when I went up to the table. I was kind of just finishing my day ultimately. And so I don't know if is it Stan's girlfriend or wife or fiance. I never got her name. Do you guys know it?
I think it's his wife. I don't remember her name.
Her name's Casey.
Casey, yeah, she's really nice. I always like talking to her. And
Great.
And Stan was really busy at the time. The table was pretty busy, and so I asked Casey. I was like, "Hey, do you?" Now, because I didn't see anywhere in the case, and I kind of figured that if this is going to be in the case, it's going to be kind of front and center. And I just said openly, I said, "Hey, do you happen to have a 52 Burke Ross Mays?" And lo and behold, she opens the case and takes it right out, and there it is. And so it was in like that part of the case. It was like, how he sets them up like kind of double stacks. It was in the case kind of further towards them. And it was, it must have been on the first row where you can't really see it unless you lean over. And so out it came, and I looked at it. I said, "This is perfect." I saw Ash had one, but it was, it was in a 7. It was going for like 6,000, and I was like, that's just way beyond what I can afford. And this was definitely what I could, make happen. So I made an offer to Stan, and Stan responded back and said, "Because it's you, yes." So Stan, I don't know if he watches any of the live streams or videos, but Stan, if you watch this, thank you again. I appreciate it. But yeah, I'm really pleased. It knocks another 52 Mays off the list. I guess I'm now down to the star decal because I think Briggs Meat was 53. I think. I think it's like what is it? Briggs Meat is 53, or is it a range like 53 to 55?
54, yeah.
One of those. So, yep. This knocks another one off the list.
That's a great card, dude.
Fantastic! I'm so happy for you when you pulled that because Dan and I were talking at the front. That was basically right when Abby and I were leaving, and you like pop right over, and you're just like you got this like grin on your face. You're just like, look at this. I was like, oh my god,
stop what you're doing!
Amazing.
Sammy's so reserved too, so to see him with emotion is always fun, right?
It was about as much emotion as Sammy could show. He was just like you could tell that he was wired because of
the system is Sammy's MO.
It reminds me of there's an episode of Friends where Joey's agent was like, expressing her excitement, and all you got was like a tiny little smirk. So that was the equivalent of that. Listen, I mean, as far as excitement and joy, it's there. I promise you, it's there. It's just, it's absorbed, and I think
I was afraid that I was going to upset you because I picked up a big Seaver card.
Oh no!
And then I see it in your case. Yeah. No, I mean. I kind of figured.
Yeah, you bought that from Harry. Harry had one. Yeah,
Harry had a whole row of, and I thought of Matt too. And I probably should have taken a picture. Harry had a whole row of these. It's the 69 Top Super, and they were all high grade. This one's an 8, and so I was looking at it, and I said to myself, I don't see that card very often. It's a high grade. It's a beautiful card. I know that there aren't. The pop counts are actually higher than I thought they were. I went and checked afterwards, but I also did check the numbers, and I got a good deal on it. I paid below recent comps, right? Below average recent comps on this. But he had an Aaron 69. Yeah. Matt, do you have that?
No, it's one of the last 100 I need. There's one sided REA, so hopefully no one's bidding. Kidding.
This was his was an 8 also, and I think he wanted over 1,000 for it. Okay. So
a little high.
I paid half of that for this. So
I think there's 8 on eBay right now for like $900 on eBay. Kind of buy it now for an 8. I want to say somewhere around that range.
Yeah,
I
so
will
you
say,
probably
I mean, I have Harry's details. I mean, if in case you did want to get in touch with him, Matt, I can put you in touch with him.
he's very easy to deal with price wise, but he's intelligent. You're not going to take advantage of him. He's going to give you a good deal, but he's not going to throw it away.
Yeah, that's a great card, Dan.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I gave him a number and he looked at me. He gave me this look like, "Come on, man." You know, get better than that. And then I said, you know, and then I gave him another number and he's like, "I can come down to this." And I looked at him like, you know what? Like, yeah, let's do it. So this was the most I paid on any card yesterday, and really, really happy to have it. But I was in the car. I was going to text Sammy and show it to her. And I'm like, oh crap, he's going to be upset.
Oh no! I saw it. I saw it.
And
In
then I
his
saw your
display
video
case.
and I saw it in the case, and I'm like, oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Aaron and Steve are on some cards together, and I always check with Sammy first to make sure before I bid on it.
Yeah, I had my.
Actually, it's funny because I was talking to you, Dan, about or texting you about it. There was another Seaver fanatic at the show who was walking and asking about oddball cards, and I forgot that there was a dealer. I don't think he was a dealer. I don't think he was set up there, but he had the 1972 Venezuela Seaver, that sticker. It's only like 7 exist. And I discussed it with him prior to the show, and I was asking him, like, I wanted to know how he came to the price he came to, because he had it on eBay for a lot of money. And so he, told me his reason, and that was really it. The conversation didn't really go much further, but that Seaver collector ended up picking it up for like nearly half the price, which I was just shocked. But yeah, that's a card. That's a tough one. Those Venezuelan 72 stamps or stickers, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, but Howard has the Nolan Ryan.
I did pick up a card from Howard that I'll show a little bit, but I don't want to steal the whole live stream. So let's.
I was just gonna say that I had my eyes peeled for the Yaz 69 Top Super, but I didn't see one at the show.
Harry didn't have it. He didn't have the Yaz.
I did see. So Howard has these 2 Yaz pieces that I've never seen anywhere else. They're 1968 Topps discs, I think is what they are. Yeah. And one of them is a test disc. And I think he wants for one of them, he wants close to $3,000, and one he wants close to $4,000. So I'm like, okay, that's a lot of my depth. But those were the coolest Yaz pieces that I'd seen. I'd seen them at Howard's table before. I did pick up one Yaz thing, and it was this. It was for $5.
Mark Hoyle, so maybe Mark Hoyle. Mark's in the chat, so he might know.
Yeah, well, it was this Permagraphics 81. I don't know, Dan, if you're familiar with this set.
No.
Permagraphics. It's supposed to be like a credit card, I guess. It feels like a credit card, and it's there's this signing section here that's supposed to be for an autograph if you were to get to sign it. I guess Permagraphics, it was a St. Louis company. They worked with Topps on it was a joint venture because this is that's the same image from the 81 Topps of Yaz.
That's right.
So I got this for $5, and it was the most interesting, unique Yaz thing that I bought that I could actually afford. A lot different than spending $3,000 on a 68 test disc. But yeah.
I see it in the comments. Somebody mentioned a Ryan Top Super 69.
I wish.
And I actually asked Harry if there was one, and he said no, there isn't one. So oh well. I did get one card from Howard, so let's move on to somebody else before I start talking more.
Well, I did want to before we jumped. I did want to mention the Willie Mays Super that I have came from a dealer at the Long Island show. And Brian, you seem to know that guy. What was his name again?
That is Lee Iskowitz's son, Alex. Lee Iskowitz is the consignment director at Heritage. And his son, Alex, sets up at a table with Lee's vintage cards and his own modern cards.
What I was going to say is, Jake, they had an entire 69 Top Super set that they broke up. And I imagine Harry must have bought a bunch. I bought the Maze. And it's possible that the Yaz, they might still have it. So, Brian, I don't know if you have his contact info, but I mean, that would be a good connection. Maybe if you're looking for that.
Yeah, thanks.
I can ask him right now.
Cool. Thanks. I'm at least curious.
Yeah. Just want to connect dots.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It's all about.
But yeah, I guess going forward, I mean, the White Plains. So this is, I guess is there one more White Plains show before Strongsville the National? They do one in March, I believe, right?
Yeah, March will be the next one before, like their spring show.
And then there's the Philly show, and then is there another Dallas show for you guys?
Yeah, there's every other month, so they'll do one in March.
Oh, it is every other month. Okay. Yeah, and then I guess April is it's going to sneak up. It's definitely going to sneak up.
Yeah, 12 weeks till Strongsville. It'll be over in 12 weeks, sadly. Who's counting?
Yeah, exactly.
Is everyone here going to Strongsville?
Yeah.
I am not, unfortunately. But
I thought you were. Did you
No,
cancel?
I'm not going. No, I'm not going to Strongsville because my Abby's brother is getting married that weekend.
That's right. You told me that. Yeah.
We had a conversation about potentially duplicating you somehow.
yeah, we're talking about Multiplicity, the Michael Keaton movie.
Yeah.
No, but my wife Abby and I really did have conversations like, okay, what if I tried to fly in on Friday and if I missed the rehearsal, it's not a big deal. I could come back on Saturday. It's just like it's too much. But we will be at the National. The part of the reason why I went to this show is because I don't think I'm going to be able to go to a quote unquote big show probably until the National at this point because of the way that the schedule runs, like stuff like I'll probably go to that unless we have other plans that weekend. I will probably go to that new June Shriners at the end of June. Just it's like 10 minutes from my house. So I'll probably go to that, but between that and that's only that's a month before the National. So I don't even think I'm probably going to have like a lot of budget for that. I'll be in sort of national saving mode at that point. But and the one thing that's a little bit of a bummer is that the April Shriners is the same weekend as Strongsville also.
Yeah.
So it's I think that's going to probably make that April Shriners a bit not as exciting of a show for a bunch of reasons. And I think it's because of Easter, because Easter's like the next weekend. I think that's why they had to, because I think Strongsville was the weekend after last year.
Yep, it was.
And they moved it, I'm assuming because of Easter. So yeah, I don't have any that's that was part of, and we have plans for the weekend of the March Philly show. So I wanted to make it for this one to see some of the bigger dealers. And there is a decent sized show in a couple weeks, first weekend in February in Cranston, Rhode Island. It's like the biggest show. It's the biggest show that happens in Rhode Island. So I'll be there for the Saturday of that.
Rusty, what about you, man? Where are you based out of?
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
And so as far as shows go, I mean, is there mostly like more local based shows where you're at?
I think they do 4 a year here in the Tulsa area that it's about 75 tables, and it's a good show. It's a fraction of the size of what that Dallas show was, but that's really what I've been to are just local shows prior to this Dallas show. So I'd like to venture out a little bit. The Strongsville show, how many tables? You guys know how many that tends to be?
It's 3. It takes up the entire portion of an ice rink that gets converted, obviously.
That'd be a fun show.
Yeah.
Very cold on the feet.
Yeah.
A lot of broken hits.
What is it? Three aisles, and it goes all the way down. So you really only I know Brian and I talked about this, but you really only need like maybe max 2 days to do it. Not even.
Okay.
But yeah, to me it's great because as far as navigation goes, to me that's arguably the best show. Space wise, and you end up bumping into people, and what's great is chances are you'll end up being with a bunch of other community collectors at the same table. If you're buying something, I mean, it's great to have someone take a look at it with you.
Sure.
You're not alone in that process,
that's what I get from hearing all you guys talk about. It's really about the connections with that show.
Yeah.
So
you get to have drinks with Chris from Missouri, so that makes it all worth it.
Yeah.
And Sammy brought in a big giant thing of beer last year, which I had several of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, then really Warren, Warren D was the one who came through ultimately because he had the beer, the chest or the case or whatever.
Yeah.
The cooler. He had the cooler, so that was good. But that to me it's great because I mean, it's not to say it's not busy, but it's, I guess what Orlando is saying is like 90% vintage, but I mean, I think it's even more than that. It's probably 95%, and maybe one table has like a display case of modern stuff just in case.
Right.
But yeah, definitely worth. You're planning on going?
I'm thinking about it. The night after the Dallas show, I'm in the hotel room and I'm starting to look at hotel options and flight options. It's about a 13-hour drive from Tulsa, so I probably wouldn't drive.
There
What's
are
that?
a block of rooms reserved, Rusty.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the YouTube content creators rooms. Chris, I joke about Chris, but Chris actually put a lot of work into this, and he reserved all the rooms. And I got my room, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago, so there might still be some rooms left. So that'll save you some money.
Okay.
I think we're working out. I know. I mean, Brian and I drove last year. I guess we're the same thing this year. I don't know. We haven't really discussed it ultimately, but I think that's part of the plan.
Sounds like you're discussing it now.
I'm down.
But I did. I know that Mookie and Pete are going as well, and so.
Oh, really? Oh, great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Mookie's still in the chat, but it seems as though that might be the consensus. That it might happen. I'm not 100% sure. It just depends on their schedules. But if it does happen with them, then we might be able to orchestrate something for, carpooling. Perhaps we'll see. But that's a 7-hour drive, which I know I appreciate you making offers to drive, Brian. Once I kind of get into a groove, I don't stop.
You are a great driver. I didn't mind you driving the whole time.
With the exception of the one exit ramp that we ran off of.
We were on the road, but it's called Jersey Slide, where you kind of like merge as you're exiting.
Oh, so Mookie confirmed he is booked for Strongsville. Fantastic.
Nice. Sweet.
Looking forward to staying at the Plaza Hotel. I mean, the Best Western.
Plus, Best Western Plus. Don't forget that plus.
It can't be worse.
Yeah, right. I hope Don decided. I feel like Don is definitely going to go, but I hope Don wears that custom shirt that he's been talking about making for a while.
I hope he does. I hope he does.
It's like the prison photo or the mugshot. Yeah. Oh man. All right, guys. Well, listen, we we're at like 74 people, so I kind of feel like it kind of feels crappy to have to finish up so soon, but I figured I'll leave it up to you guys. If there's anything else you want to show or talk about, I'm happy to go forward, but
Rusty had more cards.
I have a couple cards.
Oh, yeah, man, go for it.
Yeah.
Let me give you the screen.
All right. So right before I met Matt and Chris, I picked this up, 1952 Wheaties Bob Lemon.
Nice
portrait. And this was in that side room. In the main room, I did see an 8. And I went back to that table and checked it out again. I thought, I don't know if I want to pay the 8 sticker price. And so I kept walking around and saw this one in a 6. And this was actually the other 2 cards that I have, this one and the last one I have to show, I did buy from a modern dealer that had some vintage. And in both those situations, the guy said, yeah, I don't really do much vintage or don't know much about baseball. It's kind of okay, well, what do you have? So I'm really happy with this one, and not that I care too much about the back on, cut out of a cereal box, but nothing on that back. So really the only thing, I think, if you can tell, the bottom is cut crooked. And, I think for being a hand cut, it does not have to be cut perfectly in my book. That just gives a little bit of character. So
That's pretty cool, man. You found a wounded buffalo.
go ahead.
No, I'm saying Mookie said you found a wounded buffalo.
Then the last one that I have here, this was the bigger card that I picked up.
Oh, wow.
Sweet.
And so
the centering.
yeah, it's just, this one immediately caught my eye. And again, this was a modern dealer. And earlier in the show, I had seen a 3, and I thought I may come back to that. It was priced a little bit high, and I kept walking the show. And I saw this and looked at it, and it was priced very reasonably. So I walked off and just double checked the comps on it, and I thought I have to get this before someone else does. So I went back and asked him. I thought I might as well see what kind of deal I can get. I want to be fair, but I asked him if he had any room on it, and he starts checking his phone, and I'm thinking, crap, I should have just taken it. He's hopefully doesn't raise the price. So anyway, he did end up knocking a little bit off of it, and I'm thrilled to have this one. That was my biggest pickup of the show.
That's awesome.
That's a beauty.
Appreciate it.
The centering on those horizontal, the 55, 56 is always tough. So that's a gorgeous example.
That's the nicest 56 I have by far.
Yeah, I got to hold it. It's super nice, super well centered. Even just as good as it looks on the screen. It's beautiful. It's a great pickup, Rusty.
Appreciate it. Happy to have it.
I'm sorry, that came from this weekend?
Yes, that was
Yep.
Friday. Yeah.
Was that also from a wounded buffalo?
Yes.
It might have been.
Mookie's going to stir up trouble, man. He's going to stir up trouble.
So I did strike a deal with Howard.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you want to mention? Yeah.
He bought a whole collection of like postcard size cards, including the Wirch cigars that I had purchased the Hubble from him like 2 weeks ago online. But he had these, which are the Gold Medal Flower is what they say, but I'm pretty sure it's Gold Medal Foods. And this one's a 7. And I look at the label and I'm like, yeah, 7, whatever. I look at it, it's pretty damn close to a 7. But I've been looking for this card for so long. I just love, like, there's this guy in the back you can see with like a big bowler hat and a suit on, and it's got this whole sort of 30s feel to it. And I'm like, it's got the old time cleats on, and like, it's just, to me, this like screams 1930s Americana, sports, history, art. The whole thing is all screaming all at once. And to get it in a 7, and Howie worked with me. He had a price on this, and I gave him a lower price, and he looked, he faked like he was looking at something on his computer, and then he came back with a different number, and we got a deal. So, I see what's in the chat. Sometimes his prices are a little crazy, but on this one, he was good.
Nice.
Yeah, beautiful card.
It's good. Yeah. I remember, we were talking a little bit about that yesterday. He was the hero for St. Louis, right? Is that what?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And he, Howie, I don't know if he worked with me because I had just bought something from him, 2 weeks ago. It might have been that he was willing to work with me because I was going to say nice things about him on my channel. So I don't know, but I was very happy with the number, and very, very happy to have that card that I've been looking for several years now.
Perfect, man.
Nice.
All right, guys. Well, I think we definitely did very well. We had a lot of people. We had about as many as like 75 people, which definitely not it's not I wouldn't say it's like a world record as far as or for a collector's record, because I think that was mostly in like Hobbypalooza. Definitely broke that at various hours. Before we finish, Petty brought up a good question to finish off on, which is asking about the REA auction. I remember someone commented earlier saying Matt's looking on constantly refreshing.
No, I'm good. I used my phone. We're good.
But I figured is there
I've been
anybody?
outdated on everything now, so I got to get into
My,
I got
the only
some
thing
emails.
I am, the only thing I will say is I am, yes. There is something that I am bidding on that I am currently winning, and if I get it at the price, I don't think I will bid further on the item. If I get it at the price that I have it at, I will be quite thrilled. So that's, but I am not willing to say what it is.
No problem. Matt, are you still in?
Oh yeah, I'll get something. There's always consolation prizes.
Good outlook.
Oh, man. Cool. All right, guys. Well, again, thank you guys for joining as always. Definitely going to be, there's definitely a lot to look forward to in the next few months. So look forward again to catching up with you guys. And thank you everybody in the chat as always for the active participation. It definitely carries a lot of weight in our videos and our live streams. So thank you for that. And hope everybody has had a good weekend and has a good start to their week. So thank you guys so much for joining.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Sam.
it.
Thanks
everyone.
for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.